My dear sisters, I tell you this, heaven does not roar. The divine does not always arrive with lightning, with booming thunder, with a spectacle so loud that no one can ignore it. Most often, heaven arrives like a whisper, like a gentle wind through the trees, like the quiet bell you never rang, but you still hear it deep within your chest. And this is the first sign when stillness finds you before you find it. We live in a world consumed by noise. Notifications pull at your attention, deadlines press against your chest, the voices of others tell you who you should be, what you should want, and how fast you should move. Yet in the middle of this chaos, a strange silence appears, unexpected, unexplained. You are washing dishes, or walking on the street, or sitting in the middle of a meeting, and suddenly, the inner storm softens, the mind that was racing slows, the body that was tight relaxes. You breathe as if for the first time. This calmness does not come from your effort, it simply arrives, and that is why it is sacred. Fatigue collapses you, stillness composes you. Fatigue makes you shut down, stillness wakes you up. Do you feel the difference? When this quiet enters, the world around you does not change. Your bills remain unpaid, your struggles remain real, your questions remain unanswered. Yet something deep within shifts. You no longer feel drowned in noise, you feel carried as though an unseen hand is guiding your attention to what truly matters. This is not the kind of peace that makes you run away. It is the kind of peace that gives you courage to stay, to face the truth, to choose the next right step without fear. That is why I call it the quiet bell. It rings not to distract you from life, but to remind you of life. Now, how do you honor this sign? When it comes, you do not rush to interpret it. You do not panic to figure out what heaven wants. Instead, you lean into 3 small practices. Practice 1, the 3 exhale reset. Wherever you are, pause. Take 3 slow, intentional exhales. On the 3rd exhale, ask yourself, what is obvious and kind right now? Not what is profitable, not what will impress others, simply what is obvious and what is kind. That is enough. Practice 2, posture of receiving. Adjust your body as if heaven is speaking, because it is. Relax your shoulders, lift your chest slightly, straighten your back as though a golden thread is pulling you gently upward. This is how a temple stands. Your body becomes a vessel ready to receive. Practice 3, the 10-word journal. Each evening, write just 1 line. Stillness came when I underscore 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 underscore. Over days, over weeks, patterns will appear. You will begin to see clearly where heaven touches your life most often and where you must listen more closely. Let me give you a story. A woman once came to me exhausted. She had success, yes, but her heart was restless, her nights were long, her soul was hungry. She wanted advanced meditation, complicated practices. Instead, I gave her a cup of water. I told her, lift the cup without spilling a single drop. She laughed, too simple, but she obeyed. Each day she lifted the cup with full presence. Slowly she began to see how much of her life she was spilling. Energy wasted in people-pleasing, time wasted in meaningless distraction, love wasted in places that did not honor her. By noticing 1 cup of water, she began to notice her whole life. Months later she walked differently, not because she had escaped her problems, but because stillness had found her and taught her to stop spilling her soul. That is what happens when heaven whispers. It does not erase your difficulties. It changes your relationship with them. The stillness becomes your teacher, your anchor. But beware, my sisters, for there is a counterfeit. There is numbing that looks like stillness. Hours wasted scrolling, distractions that make you forget yourself, escape that feels like rest but leaves you emptier than before. That is not heaven. That is the world's counterfeit peace. You can tell the difference easily. Numbing asks you to abandon yourself. Stillness returns you to yourself. Numbing leaves you ashamed and drained. Stillness leaves you proud of 1 small honest step. Why does heaven whisper this way? Because when a woman truly hears, when a woman is aligned with her quiet bell, the world shifts around her. Children sleep better, friends argue less, a room becomes calmer, simply because she is in it. Not by force, not by shouting, simply by presence. Do you see how powerful this is? The stillness you carry becomes medicine for everyone around you. Does that mean you will never feel struggle again? No, struggle continues. But the difference is this: struggle no longer owns you. You may still feel fear, but fear no longer drives the car. You may still feel pain, but pain no longer decides your worth. You stand taller, not because you conquered the world, but because you learned to be still inside it. So when this stillness arrives, bow, not because you are small, but because the moment is holy. Bow to your breath, bow to your own life, bow to the quiet bell within your chest, then rise, just 2 millimeters taller, and take the next honest step. This is the first sign. Heaven has whispered to you. Sisters, I tell you this: heaven does not only whisper in silence, it also arranges patterns. When the divine wants to speak, it does not always use words. Sometimes it stitches meaning into the fabric of your ordinary days. You notice the same number appearing again and again. A phrase you needed suddenly shows up in 2 different conversations. A book you have never seen before appears 3 times in 1 week. A symbol, a song, a small image repeats itself until it makes you pause. These are not accidents. These are not coincidences to laugh away. This is heaven's second language. And when heaven whispers to a woman, it often chooses this language of patterns. But listen carefully. Patterns are not toys for superstition. They are not a game for the restless mind to play endlessly. They are sacred invitations, guiding threads. The problem is, most people either ignore them completely or chase them with obsession until they lose their balance. What I want you to see is how to recognize patterns, how to honor them, and how to let them guide you without becoming trapped. Let us begin here. The divine does not waste symbols. If a pattern is real, it will come with grace, not with pressure. It will repeat without you forcing it. It will arrive in ways you could not have predicted. It will not demand that you search desperately for it. It will find you. That is how you know the difference between your imagination and heaven's handwriting. But in this modern world, we are surrounded by algorithms. Your phone listens. Your feed predicts. Your location shapes what appears on your screen. Many of the patterns you notice online are not sacred at all. They are simply targeted by machines. So how do you test the truth of a pattern? I teach my students the 72-hour analog test. When you notice a symbol, a phrase, or an image repeating itself, step away from the digital world for 72 hours. No scrolling, no feeds, no targeted ads. Live simply. Walk, cook, read from paper, spend time in conversation. If the pattern disappears when the algorithm is gone, it was only digital. But if the pattern continues, if it appears in the words of a stranger on the street, in the song of a bird, in the lines of a book you randomly opened, then it is sacred. Then you must pay attention. Now, when you see that a pattern is real, you must handle it like fire, with respect. Too much fear, and you run from it. Too much obsession, and you burn yourself. What is needed is balance. I want to give you 3 lenses for looking at synchronicity, the 3 lenses of guidance. Lens 1, repetition without strain. Ask yourself, is this pattern repeating naturally, or am I hunting for it? If you are straining, if you are desperate to see it everywhere, that is not sacred. It is your fear searching for certainty. But if the pattern surprises you, appearing when you least expect, arriving with gentle consistency, then you can trust that it is a whisper from heaven. Lens 2, resonance in the body. The body is wise. Place your hand on your chest or your belly and say the symbol or phrase aloud, then watch your breath. Does it deepen or does it tighten? A sacred pattern expands you, makes your breath fuller, your shoulders softer. A false pattern makes your jaw tighten, your body shrink, your breath shorten. Heaven does not cage you, it opens you. Lens 3, fruit in small experiments. Do not rush to make life-changing decisions from a single sign. Instead, take one small step. If the pattern points you toward learning, read 1 chapter. If it points you toward service, make 1 kind phone call. If it points you toward rest, take 1 afternoon to breathe. Then notice, does this small experiment bring peace? Does it bring clarity? Does it bring a sense of alignment? If yes, continue. If no, pause. Patterns are tested by fruit, not by fantasy. Now I must warn you of something. Many people fall into what I call pattern inflation. They begin to see meaning in everything. Every bird becomes a prophecy. Every shadow becomes a warning. Every red light means heaven is trying to stop them. This obsession does not make you holy. It makes you paranoid. That is not what heaven wants. Heaven whispers not to imprison you, but to guide you with freedom. To avoid this, practice what I call playful seriousness. Take the patterns seriously enough to respect them, but lightly enough to smile. Be like a child discovering a trail of breadcrumbs. You do not panic, you follow with curiosity, with humility, with joy. Let me tell you a story. A woman once began seeing the word water everywhere. At first, she ignored it. Then it appeared on the cover of a magazine, in a song on the radio, in the drawing of a child she met. She decided to take the 72-hour analog test. Even away from her phone, the word appeared again and again. She used the 3 lenses. Repetition without strain. Yes, resonance in the body. When she said the word aloud, her breath softened. Fruit in small experiments. She began each morning with a glass of water in silence, treating it as a small ritual. Within weeks, she realized something profound. She had been draining herself, giving everything without replenishment. The pattern of water reminded her to replenish daily, not just with liquid, but with silence, with rest, with prayer. That one pattern changed the way she lived. Do you see? The divine was not telling her to move cities, to quit her work, to chase some dramatic destiny. It was telling her replenish, a simple, holy truth. And sometimes, patterns do not guide you forward. They help you close a chapter. You might see an animal connected to your past appear again and again. You might hear the same song from an old relationship in unexpected places. That does not always mean return. Sometimes it means release with blessing. Heaven does not slam doors with anger. It teaches you how to close them gently, so the hinges of your heart do not rattle forever. But how do you avoid projecting your own wishes into patterns? You practice the contrary test. If you believe a sign is telling you to leap, spend 24 hours imagining the opposite. What if I stay? If the opposite creates chaos in your soul, then the sign was real. If the opposite creates peace, then perhaps your desire was disguising itself as guidance. Heaven is not fragile. True signs survive honest questioning. You may also share the pattern with one trusted soul, not someone addicted to drama, but someone who loves you more than they love stories. Let them mirror back what they hear. Sometimes heaven uses community as a lens, so you do not lose yourself in your own interpretation. Now, a tender warning. Do not use synchronicity to escape grief. Sometimes, in loss, the mind looks for magical shortcuts to avoid pain. But real patterns will not bypass your sorrow. They will sit beside you in it, like a quiet friend. They will not erase the tears. They will place a hand on your shoulder until you are ready to take one small step forward. That is how you know the pattern is compassionate, not manipulative. And finally, let me tell you this. Heaven enjoys being enjoyed. Patterns are not just commands, they are also companionship. Walk with them lightly, the way you would walk with a wise elder through a crowded market, attentive, humble, amused. Notice the gifts hidden in plain sight, the kindness of a stranger, the smile of a child, the weight of fruit in your hand. The whisper of heaven is not only in the extraordinary, it is in the ordinary, illuminated by your awareness. So when a symbol begins to appear, do not run, do not obsess, step back, test it, breathe it, try one small act, share it with someone who loves you, and above all enjoy it, because the divine does not only want your obedience, it wants your aliveness. This is the second sign. Heaven speaks the language of patterns. There comes a moment in every woman's life when silence begins to speak louder than words, not the silence of neglect, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of heaven itself. It does not arrive with thunder, nor does it strike with lightning. It arrives softly, like a whisper that carries guidance, strength, and direction. But the beauty of this whisper is that not everyone can hear it. It requires sensitivity of the heart, the ability to be still in a world of noise, and the courage to accept that what you are sensing is more than just coincidence. It is divine alignment, calling you toward a higher path. When heaven whispers to a woman, one of the unmistakable signs is that her spirit becomes restless in places where she once felt comfortable. What used to satisfy her no longer does. The conversations she used to enjoy begin to feel shallow. The habits that once kept her busy now feel like chains. This restlessness is not a punishment. It is preparation. It is heaven shifting her away from what is no longer meant for her, and guiding her towards something greater, and the mistake many make is to interpret this restlessness as dissatisfaction, as if something is wrong with them, but in reality, nothing is wrong, something is being reborn. Think of it like a seed that has been buried in the soil. For a long time, the seed is comfortable in its darkness. It knows only that space, but one day it feels pressure from within. It begins to crack. The soil that once felt like home now feels suffocating. If the seed could speak, it might say, "Why is this happening to me? Why do I feel so unsettled in the place where I once belonged?" But the cracking is not the end. It is the beginning. The pressure is not meant to destroy, but to birth life. And so it is with a woman when heaven whispers to her. The places, people, and patterns that once seemed to fit her soul will no longer fit. It is the whisper saying, "You are being called to grow." Another sign is that doors begin to close, even when she desperately wants them to stay open. Opportunities that seem promising suddenly dissolve. Relationships she wanted to last may begin to fade. Paths she thought were certain become blocked. And though her heart may ache, she will realize later that every closed door was heaven's protection. You see, not every opportunity is meant to elevate her. Not every relationship is aligned with her destiny, and not every path is safe for her spirit. What feels like rejection is often redirection, and if she listens closely, she will notice that the whisper always comes before the shift, a gentle nudge telling her, "This is not for you, trust that something better awaits." But heaven does not only whisper through loss or restlessness. Sometimes it whispers through peace, a peace that cannot be explained by logic. When a woman stands at a crossroads and everything feels uncertain, yet in her heart she feels an unshakable calm about a certain direction, that calm is not random. It is the voice of heaven saying, "Go this way." And the remarkable thing about this peace is that it often contradicts what makes sense. Others may not understand it. They may tell her she is being foolish, too bold, or even unrealistic. But she knows deep down that what she feels is not ordinary. It is sacred. It is the assurance that even though the road looks difficult, she is not walking it alone. Another way heaven whispers is through repetition. A woman may start noticing the same message appearing in different forms. She may hear the same phrase in a conversation, see it written on a page, or sense it in her prayers. When heaven wants her to pay attention, it will not just whisper once, it will echo. And with each echo, she will feel her spirit pulled toward understanding. It is like being given puzzle pieces, one at a time, until suddenly the picture becomes clear. And when the picture becomes clear, she realizes that what she thought was random was actually orchestration. Heaven also whispers through alignment. When a woman is truly walking toward her destiny, she begins to notice how things start falling into place in ways she could not have planned. People arrive at the right time, opportunities appear without effort. What seemed impossible suddenly begins to unfold naturally, and though it may look effortless on the outside, she knows it is not coincidence. It is the divine aligning her steps with purpose, and this alignment always comes with confirmation in her heart that says, "Yes, this is where you are meant to be." But perhaps the most powerful whisper of all is the awakening of her inner strength. Heaven whispers to a woman by reminding her who she is. When she begins to see herself not as fragile, not as unworthy, but as chosen, as capable, as strong, that is not simply positive thinking. That is heaven's voice speaking life into her spirit. Every woman carries within her a strength she does not always see, and when heaven whispers, it awakens that strength. It reminds her that she is not defined by her past, not limited by her pain, and not bound by the labels others have placed on her. She is more, she has always been more, she only needed to hear the whisper to remember it. And so, when heaven whispers to a woman, she must be willing to listen, to pause in the busyness of life, to silence the distractions, and to lean into that still small voice. It may not shout, it may not demand, but it will guide her faithfully, gently, and powerfully toward the life she was always meant to live. And when she listens, truly listens, she will find that the whisper was never faint, it was always strong. It was her heart that needed to grow quiet enough to hear it. So I say to you, if you are a woman hearing this now, pay attention to the restlessness within you, the peace that defies understanding, the repetition of messages the alignment of paths, and the awakening of your strength. These are not random occurrences, they are whispers, and those whispers are heaven's way of guiding you, protecting you, and preparing you for what is to come. Trust them, because when heaven whispers, it is not only speaking to you, it is speaking through you, and when you align yourself with that whisper, you will discover the extraordinary destiny you were always meant to walk in. There are moments in life when you will feel an inner stirring, a silent shift, as though heaven itself is moving through you without a single word being spoken. It is not dramatic, it is not loud, but it is undeniable. When heaven whispers to a woman, one of the signs she must recognize is the way her strength begins to take shape in silence. It is not the kind of strength that demands to be seen. It is not the kind of power that begs to be acknowledged. It is a strength that lives in the quiet spaces of her soul, unshakable, patient, and radiant. It is the strength that does not collapse when storms come, but instead bends like the tree that knows its roots are deep. Heaven's whisper teaches her that she no longer needs to prove herself. She no longer needs to fight every battle. She has learned that true power does not shout, it does not rush, it simply exists with unwavering presence. Many women misunderstand strength. They think it is about carrying the world on their shoulders, about never falling, never breaking, never admitting they are tired. But the strength heaven gives a woman is different. It allows her to fall but still rise. It allows her to cry but not lose herself in sorrow. It allows her to let go of things that once defined her and yet walk into the unknown without fear. This kind of strength is invisible to many, but to those with eyes to see it glows like light. When a woman feels this shift inside her, she must know heaven is shaping her into something more. This strength is often revealed in solitude, when she sits alone at night, no audience, no noise, just herself. She notices she is no longer afraid of being with her own thoughts. She is no longer dependent on external validation. She has found comfort in her own presence, peace in her own silence, and in that silence, she begins to hear what was always there, the divine whisper that tells her she is enough. That whisper carries with it a clarity that cuts through every illusion. She is not what others think of her. She is not her failures. She is not her pain. She is what endures when everything else has been stripped away. That is heaven's message, spoken in the most tender yet unshakable voice. At times, this strength will be tested. People will push her, circumstances will try her, life will strip away what she thought she needed, and instead of breaking down as she once might have, she finds herself standing differently, not with arrogance, not with ego, but with stillness. It surprises even her. She realizes that the battles that used to consume her no longer affect her the same way. She no longer wastes energy on proving who she is. Instead, she simply lives it. This is the whisper of heaven. Do not fight everything. Some things will collapse on their own. Do not argue every word. Truth does not need defending. Do not run from silence. Silence is where I speak. And in that moment she becomes a mirror of heaven's strength. She walks into a room, and without a single word, people sense something different about her. It is not force, it is not intimidation, but a calmness that cannot be shaken. That is what heaven creates when it whispers to her, a presence that shifts the atmosphere. This is not given to every woman. It is given to the one who has surrendered, who has chosen to listen, who has allowed herself to be remade. But this strength also brings responsibility. When heaven whispers to a woman and fills her with such quiet power, she must remember not to misuse it. Power without wisdom destroys. Strength without compassion isolates. So heaven softens her heart, even as it makes her unshakable. She learns that true strength is not about hardening herself. It is about becoming so rooted in love and wisdom that nothing external can shake her foundation. She becomes both a fortress and a refuge. She becomes someone who can endure storms, but also shelter others in them. That balance of being unbreakable yet tender is a sure sign that heaven's hand is upon her life. And perhaps the greatest mark of this strength is that she no longer clings to what she once thought she needed. She does not beg for love that is not real. She does not hold on to friendships that wound her. She does not shrink herself to keep peace. Instead, she stands with the dignity of someone who has heard heaven's whisper, "You are enough, and what I have for you will not require you to diminish who you are." This allows her to let go of things she once feared losing, because she knows what is meant for her will remain, and what leaves was never part of her destiny. In this strength, she becomes deeply aligned with her true purpose. She stops running after illusions and begins to live in alignment with the life heaven has been guiding her toward all along. Opportunities open, clarity comes, but most importantly, peace surrounds her. That is the sign, not just success, not just recognition, but peace, because the greatest strength heaven whispers into a woman is not the ability to conquer the world, it is the ability to conquer herself. When she does that, she cannot be stopped, and she cannot be broken. So when a woman finds herself changing in this way, becoming quieter but stronger, softer but more powerful, less reactive but more radiant, she must know that heaven has whispered to her soul. It is shaping her, molding her, preparing her not only for her destiny, but for the higher version of herself she was always meant to become. And when she listens to that whisper, she discovers what no one can ever take from her: unshakable inner strength, born not from the world, but from heaven itself. When a woman senses the whispers of heaven, one of the most profound signs she will notice is a shift in the way people begin to respond to her presence. This sign is not loud, nor is it always obvious, but it is undeniable once you begin to pay attention. People who once overlooked her suddenly pause when she speaks. Conversations that used to pass by without recognition now find themselves returning to her wisdom, as though her words carry a weight that others can't quite explain. This is not about her becoming more talkative or more forceful. It is about her spirit aligning with a higher vibration, and that vibration influences the world around her without her having to push. She begins to notice that silence becomes her strength, that her peace unsettles the chaotic, and her calm commands a respect that no title or position could ever give. When heaven whispers to a woman, she does not need to announce her worth. The shift is subtle yet powerful. Others recognize it, often before she herself does. She also finds herself walking away from circles that once defined her, not because she suddenly despises them, but because her heart no longer resonates with the gossip, the noise, the distractions. At first, it may even feel lonely, because the familiar no longer feels like home, but that loneliness is not a punishment. It is preparation. It is heaven whispering, you are being set apart, because something greater awaits you. Many women misunderstand this stage, thinking they are being abandoned or forgotten, but in reality, they are being refined. When a woman feels restless where she once felt comfortable, she is standing at the doorway of transformation. Heaven is stirring her spirit to move forward. Even when her surroundings remain the same, she begins to crave silence, solitude, reflection. And though the world may look at her and wonder why she is pulling away, she knows within that she is drawing nearer to something far beyond what the eye can see. Another unmistakable sign appears in the way challenges enter her life, not to break her but to build her. The difficulties she faces during this period are not ordinary inconveniences. They carry lessons, shaping her character and sharpening her resilience. These challenges often test her patience, her faith, her trust. Yet strangely, even in the midst of hardship, she feels a quiet strength she cannot explain. Where she once would have panicked, now she feels guided. Where she once would have doubted, now she feels reassured, even when the evidence is invisible. This paradox, struggle on the outside, peace on the inside, is the fingerprint of heaven. The storm is real, but so is the anchor within her. This is how heaven whispers, not by removing every obstacle, but by giving her the inner strength to walk through the fire without being consumed. She also begins to receive confirmations in ways that seem too coincidental to be ignored. A sentence in a book she randomly opens, a stranger who says something that directly answers a question in her heart, a dream that carries clarity she couldn't find in waking hours. These moments may seem small to others, but to her they are sacred. They are divine reminders that she is being guided step by step. Heaven whispers through synchronicities, through patterns that repeat until she cannot dismiss them. Some call it intuition, others call it alignment, but she knows it is not chance. It is direction. When these moments occur, her faith deepens. She learns to trust her spirit more than her eyes, her inner knowing more than external approval, and with each confirmation her confidence in the unseen grows. Finally, one of the clearest signs is the way her heart begins to open with compassion in places where bitterness once lived. She no longer feels the need to fight every battle or prove every point. Forgiveness comes more easily, not because the wrong was small, but because her soul no longer wants to carry heavy chains. She realizes that peace is far more valuable than pride, and healing is worth more than holding grudges. This softening of the heart does not make her weak, it makes her radiant. The woman who forgives shines differently, and others can feel it. This is heaven's whisper. You were not created to stay wounded, you were created to heal, to rise, to reflect divine love. When she reaches this place, even her enemies sense the shift. They may not understand it, but they cannot deny it. Her very presence becomes a living testimony that something greater is moving within her. So when heaven whispers to a woman, these signs follow: the respect she quietly commands without demanding it, the separation from what no longer serves her, the refining fire of challenges that do not destroy her, the divine confirmations that guide her steps, and the deep transformation of her heart. These are not accidents, they are signals that she is stepping into a higher purpose, and though the world may not fully see what is happening, she knows within her soul that she is being prepared, elevated, and chosen for something far greater than herself.